The story begins at the Hubert National Bank. A group of thieves, posing as Special Forces commandos, target this bank for their first heist. Their leader walks straight to the bank manager and, without hesitation, shoots him in the chest, leaving everyone inside shocked and terrified. The thieves then quickly overpower the security guards and throw a Bluetooth speaker into the middle of the hall. A stern voice echoes from the speaker, ordering everyone to lie down and place their hands on the ground. Frightened, the customers immediately obey, while the bank employees panic and open the safe. The entire heist is completed in just 2 minutes, and the thieves escape with $3 million. While fleeing, they leave behind a motion-activated bomb. A threatening message from the same speaker warns that if anyone stands up or calls the police, the bomb will explode within 15 minutes. As the leader exits, he looks at the CCTV camera and shoots it, destroying the evidence. Within moments, the thieves vanish into the city streets as if they never existed. About 25 minutes later, the FBI receives news of the robbery. The only clue left at the scene is a fingerprint found on the bomb. No other evidence is discovered, leaving Secretary Jonathan puzzled. He cannot understand why the thieves killed the bank manager after completing such a clean operation. Jonathan suspects there is a deeper secret behind the crime, so he begins searching for answers. His partner informs him that the police have already taken the bomb into custody. This angers Jonathan, who questions why the police are interfering in an FBI case. Furious, he goes directly to the police station and confronts Police Chief Brian. He demands that any evidence found be handed over immediately. Brian, clearly nervous, explains that the fingerprint belongs to a man named James, a former Special Forces soldier. 5 years earlier, James and his team kidnapped several college students and demanded ransom. When the ransom was not paid, the students were killed. Later, another army unit tracked down and eliminated all the rogue commandos. Now, only James's younger brother, Ranger, remains alive from his family. The police suspect that since James and his team are dead, Ranger may have committed the robbery and somehow planted James's fingerprint at the scene using advanced technology. Just then, Agent Wells arrives with new information. He reports that Ranger was seen in a store at the exact time of the robbery. This creates a mystery because it would be impossible for one man to be in 2 places at once. Hearing this, Jonathan realizes that the thieves are deliberately trying to mislead investigators. The way they are operating suggests they are not truly from the Special Forces, because trained commandos would never leave fingerprints behind. Therefore, these people are either very naive or extremely clever. While the agents are still trying to unravel this mystery, another heist takes place. This time, the thieves threaten to kill the bank manager's family and force him to open the safe. The manager, wearing an earpiece, enters the bank and, out of fear, sends everyone outside for breakfast. He then opens the safe with trembling hands. As soon as the task is completed, the thieves move toward the bank. They encounter a female employee leaving the building, who, in panic, is about to trigger the alarm. However, the manager stops her and manages to calm the situation. Once again, the thieves play the same harsh voice through the speaker, taking control of the entire bank. But this time, instead of stealing money, they take important documents from a secure vault. The most surprising part is that they arrange medical treatment for the injured guard, and even ask the same female employee to bandage him. This makes it clear that these people do not kill without reason. It also raises the question of why the bank manager was killed during the first robbery. The answer begins to emerge shortly afterward. A third manager is leaving for the office in the rain when a thief suddenly opens his car door and drags him out. He falls onto the wet road, and before he can react, a knife is driven into his neck. Meanwhile, bank owner Jeffrey learns that 2 of his branches have been robbed. He appears far more concerned about the missing documents, which contain a major secret, than about the stolen money. After 2 consecutive robberies, Secretary Jonathan becomes even more worried because the thieves have left behind no clues other than that single fingerprint. What troubles him most is the contradiction in their behavior. In one bank, they killed the manager, while in another, they saved the life of an injured guard. Seeing this pattern, Jonathan begins to suspect that there is a hidden motive behind these crimes, and that the thieves are working toward a specific goal. Still confused, he interrogates the surviving bank manager, not expecting to gain any useful information. However, the manager unintentionally provides a crucial clue. Jonathan asks whether the bank's owner, Jeffrey, visits the branch often. The manager explains that Jeffrey is an extremely wealthy man who owns nearly 3,000 bank branches across the country. He rarely visits small branches and only goes to his largest locations once or twice a year. But recently, something unusual has been happening. Jeffrey has been visiting this small branch every day, sometimes even at closing time, and personally checking the safe. Hearing this, Jonathan realizes that something is clearly wrong. Meanwhile, a colleague brings him even more shocking news. By tracking the serial numbers of the stolen cash, investigators discover that the entire $3 million has been donated to a charity. Police Chief Brian had not shared this critical information with Jonathan, which makes him even angrier. He immediately orders Agent Wells to work with Brian and investigate the matter further. The technical department also confirms that the fingerprint on the bullet belongs to James. This troubles Jonathan the most, because he cannot understand how a man who is already dead could appear again. By now, evidence carrying James's fingerprint has been found at both crime scenes, which deepens Jonathan's confusion. He begins to believe that something hidden in the old kidnapping case is now coming to light. With this in mind, he orders one of his colleagues to keep a close watch on Jeffrey and uncover every possible detail about him. The next day, Jeffrey himself arrives at the bank manager's funeral, accompanied by the area's political leader. Jonathan finds it extremely strange that so many influential figures have attended the funeral of two small branch managers. His suspicions grow even stronger. Meanwhile, Brian is forced to investigate alongside Wells. During their investigation, they discover a crucial witness. A security guard at a jewelry shop explains that he has a habit of noting vehicle registration numbers whenever he becomes suspicious. He had also written down the number of the thieves' car. When the number is checked, it turns out the car is registered in Ranger's name. Upon receiving this information, Brian immediately orders Ranger to be arrested. Meanwhile, at headquarters, Jonathan discovers a strange file that he initially assumes is part of an investigation report. However, inside he finds several photographs. These images show Jeffrey and the area leader in close association, making it clear that the file was intentionally sent by the thieves. After connecting all the clues, Jonathan decides that he must confront Jeffrey directly. The next day, he goes to the bank headquarters to meet him. During the conversation, Jonathan mentions Jeffrey's deceased younger brother, who was a victim of the old kidnapping case carried out by the same special forces group that included James. Jeffrey remains calm and refuses to respond to Jonathan's questions. But when Jonathan directly asks what was contained in the stolen documents, Jeffrey's face suddenly changes. Seeing this reaction, Jonathan realizes that Jeffrey's repeated visits to that small branch were not routine, but connected to a serious secret. Enraged, Jeffrey calls security, and Jonathan is forcibly removed from the headquarters. At that very moment, the thieves begin their third operation, this time targeting the bank's main headquarters. They move with precision and coordination, each member carrying out a clearly defined role. They cross the main lobby, where security is tight and the area is crowded with customers. Despite this, the thieves proceed smoothly and attempt to enter the main section using cables. At the same time, Jeffrey's guards are escorting Jonathan outside. Jonathan suddenly notices the thieves and shouts for everyone to lie down, causing panic inside the bank. The thieves seize the moment and grab a security guard, and Jeffrey himself appears at the scene. The FBI opens fire, a bullet accidentally strikes the security guard, and Jonathan's gunfire hits one of the thieves, who falls to the ground as if dead. However, the man suddenly gets back up and launches another attack. Seeing the situation worsen, Jonathan first takes Jeffrey to safety, and then confronts the thieves again. But this time, the thieves overpower him, and along with the injured security guard, Jonathan barely manages to escape with his life. The thieves complete their task. After a long confrontation, Jeffrey is left with only one bodyguard, who is on the verge of collapsing from exhaustion. The most surprising part is that the thief standing in front does not attack the bodyguard. From beginning to end, their only real target has been Jeffrey. The thief asks the bodyguard to drop his weapon. However, one of his companions suddenly arrives and shoots the bodyguard in the forehead. Seeing this, the leader angrily shouts at his own man. At that very moment, Jonathan seizes the opportunity, attacks, and kills the thief who fired the shot. The leader, however, is captured alive. As the situation begins to turn, one of the remaining thieves immediately takes a female employee hostage to negotiate the release of his captured companion. Negotiations take place between both sides, and an exchange is agreed upon. Jonathan knows that if he releases the thief, his own life could be in danger. Surprisingly, the thief keeps his word and orders his companions not to fire. All the thieves quickly flee, and the FBI seals the entire crime scene. When the technical team examines the body, they discover that the fingerprints have been erased, and even the teeth have been removed to prevent identification. Meanwhile, Brian receives a call informing him that Ranger has been located. Brian and Wells rush to the scene, but inside the house, they find only Ranger's sister-in-law. She explains that after James's death, whenever Ranger visits, he leaves money for household expenses so the children can survive. Brian realizes this information may not lead anywhere useful. Soon after, he receives news that Ranger has been spotted near an old house where the other thieves may be hiding. However, Brian hides this information from Wells. The real reason is personal. Brian's wife has been battling cancer for a long time, and his limited salary makes it impossible to afford her treatment. Remembering his wife's suffering pushes Brian toward making a difficult decision. Meanwhile, the next morning, Jonathan receives an unknown file sent by the thieves. After seeing its contents, he is shaken. The file contains evidence of Jeffrey's crimes, revealing a secret he had hidden for years. It turns out that Jeffrey himself had orchestrated the earlier kidnapping plot to maintain control of his family's estate and prevent it from being divided. He bribed a military officer to fabricate documents for a fake counterterrorism operation. James and his special forces team were assigned to that very mission. Believing they were targeting real terrorists, the team carried out the raid, but later they discovered the truth. The victims were unarmed college students, including Jeffrey's Jeffrey's own younger brother. After learning this, the entire team was devastated. They realized the orders they had followed were based on lies and immediately sent a report to higher authorities. But before the truth could be revealed, another special forces unit attacked them. James's team was unprepared, and in the sudden assault, they were killed one by one. James was also believed to have died in that attack. Jeffrey's younger brother was killed, leaving Jeffrey as the sole heir to the entire estate. To hide his crime, Jeffrey paid a large sum of money to certain army officers to have James and his team declared traitors. He had already bribed 3 members of James's unit to strengthen his plan. These 3 men later turned out to be the 2 bank managers who were killed by the thieves, and the third was the same leader seen at James's funeral. On the day of the mission, these 3 men took leave under various excuses and later testified against their own comrades. After James's team was eliminated, Jeffrey absorbed these men into his network and used them to expand his influence and power. He believed his secret would remain buried forever and that he would continue living a comfortable and powerful life. However, some Special Forces soldiers had actually survived the mission. Over time, they discovered that Jeffrey had manipulated them and made them responsible for killing their own innocent brothers. This truth haunted them for years and never allowed them to live in peace. After leaving the army, the surviving soldiers reunited and decided to take revenge. Their goal was clear. Jeffrey and his associates had to be punished. Jonathan, now fully aware of the truth, suspected that Ranger had a deep connection to the entire operation. He also believed that the money Ranger had been giving to Marta might be part of the stolen cash. Meanwhile, Brian had also been secretly tracking Ranger and confirmed that the money was hidden in the same old house. Brian and one of his officers decided to retrieve all the money from there before dawn. As the investigation continued, the media became active. Major television channels began exposing the truth and revealing the scale of the injustice committed against James and his team. Upon hearing this news, Jeffrey realized that his downfall had begun. Panicked, he quickly packed his belongings and started preparing to flee. Jonathan also sensed Jeffrey's intentions and instructed his partner, Wells, to immediately check whether any flights had been booked in Jeffrey's name to prevent his escape. Meanwhile, Jonathan himself arrived at the bar where James's girlfriend once worked, suspecting that James might still be alive. At the same time, Brian went to meet his teammates before dawn. At the last moment, he changed his mind and tried to stop the plan, but his companions, blinded by greed for money, refused to listen to him. Meanwhile, Jonathan found James inside that very bar. Seeing James alive confirmed all of his suspicions. He immediately took James to FBI headquarters and began questioning him. Piecing together all the clues, Jonathan begins to suspect that James may have become the leader of the thieves to seek revenge. But James flatly denies this, insisting that he is not behind any of the crimes. Meanwhile, Brian confronts his 2 companions and separates them. However, both men, still intent on stealing the money, head to the old house. Upon arriving, their hopes are dashed when they find nothing where they expected millions of rupees to be hidden. Suddenly, police sirens blare, escalating the situation. One of the men attempts to shoot at the police, but he is immediately shot dead. The other, terrified, surrenders with his hands up and is also arrested. At the same time, Jonathan at the FBI receives news that Brian's men have been captured. Brian arrives at the scene, and Jonathan asks how he knew the location of the money. Brian explains that he received the information from an informant, and that Wells was aware of everything. Hearing this, Jonathan falls silent and immediately checks Wells' file. The file reveals that Wells was part of the same Special Forces unit manipulated by Jeffrey. After the mission, Wells abruptly left the army and joined the FBI. He had known everything from the beginning and had been abusing his power, constantly providing clues to the thieves so they could take revenge on Jeffrey. Now it becomes clear that Wells is the real mastermind. Jonathan orders that Wells be captured without delay. Police vehicles quickly move to apprehend him. At that very moment, Stockwell learns of Jeffrey's location, but by the time they arrive, it is too late. Jeffrey has fled in a helicopter, leaving the thieves' revenge plan unfulfilled. Seeing this, Wells loses his temper and begins firing continuously at the helicopter. Stockwell tries to stop him, calling him crazy. Just then, all of Wells' accomplices arrive, armed. Seeing this, Stockwell realizes that Wells is the mastermind behind everything, and that he will not back down under any circumstances. Stockwell fights with all his strength, knocking down several thieves and throwing Wells to the ground. Meanwhile, one of the thieves attacks Stockwell from behind, striking him on the head with the butt of a rifle and knocking him unconscious. Shortly after, police cars arrive with sirens blaring. Jonathan rushes to the rooftop, but it is too late. Only a wounded Stockwell lies on the rooftop, while Wells has fled with his companions. Then Brian remembers seeing a map in Wells' car with a marked location. Using that memory, he tracks the place where Wells was moving the money. Upon seeing Brian, Wells tells him to leave quietly. When Brian refuses, Wells opens fire. However, Wells is not willing to let Brian go easily. He personally informs the police of Brian's location and sets out to find Jeffrey. Jonathan is determined not to let them escape. A few months later, they locate Jeffrey in Mexico. Jonathan is certain that Wells is there as well. He sets out alone to confront him. When they meet face to face, Jonathan's eyes reflect a mixture of pity, anger, and pain directed at Wells all at once. Wells told Jonathan that he and his comrades had been suffering inside for years. During that mission, he realized that something was terribly wrong. But a soldier is not allowed to ask questions. They simply follow orders. That is their duty. The mistake he made that day never allowed him to sleep peacefully. As the mission progressed, the fear in his heart only deepened. Finally, when only James survived and the fear in his eyes was visible, Wells became completely convinced that his suspicions were correct. They had all been manipulated by those at the top. After learning the truth, Wells and his companions staged James's death and somehow saved his life. But even alive, James had lost everything. He lost his identity, and the man who had been willing to sacrifice his life for his country was now forced to live in hiding within his own country. On the other hand, Wells and his companions lived with the burden of killing their own friends. The true culprit behind this entire tragic story was Jeffrey. That is why they decided to take revenge. Hearing this, Jonathan directly asked Wells, "What about the innocent people who were killed without reason?" Jonathan's voice echoed in Wells's ears, and upon hearing it, Wells broke down completely. He admitted that he had no intention of killing the security guard. He was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they had tried their best to save him. This led to a heated debate between the two over whether or not to kill Jeffrey, and the atmosphere grew even more tense. Finally, Jonathan said that he had trusted Wells once before and was betrayed, but now he was trusting him again for the last time, and this time he did not want to regret it. Saying this, Jonathan walked straight toward Jeffrey, who showed no remorse for his actions and instead laughed arrogantly. Jeffrey, believing he was completely safe in Mexico, threatened Jonathan, saying that if he were harmed, it would be Jonathan's fault. These words have no effect on Jonathan. Suddenly, Jonathan attacks and stabs Jeffrey in the stomach. Seeing this, the people nearby flee in fear. Jeffrey's bodyguard, seeing his boss wounded, draws his gun, but Wells notices him first and shoots him. Jonathan then points his gun at Wells, and the two stand facing each other in silence. For a moment, neither of them moves, but Wells slowly lowers his gun and turns his back, beginning to walk away. He leaves his fate in Jonathan's hands, as if the burden he had carried for years has finally been lifted. Seeing him walk away, Jonathan also lowers his gun. With this, the story comes to an end. If you enjoyed this movie explanation, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.